I think I have it now. Not I think I should have it now. So I was trying to do this on the other page, but I was having some minor issues. I am not the voices in my head. Hi, good evening, good evening, good evening. Or any of the things that cause me pain. Left behind. Greetings, everybody. The outside. I am not my race. Right, so I think we can. Right, sorry, I could read your messages now. Good evening. So I kind of like do not have a voice really. I've been struggling with my voice for the last 4 or 5 days. But nevertheless, I'm here. So invite the usual stuff. Invite your friends. Yes, that's correct. India I am like that was the song. Hey, Renwick. Natasha Greaves, hi. I'm glad that you're here. You're not fighting me tonight, but that's another conversation. Javon, good evening. Sir Dennis, greetings. Simeon, Regina, Damien, must have been you who knew the song. Hi, Lady Barton. So yeah, not we, I'm here again. We're talking about our little ramblings that seem to be going somewhere. Jilly, we talked about last week. Corey, what did we talk about last week? Oh, last week we were talking about no wind, no movement. And tonight I want to, with the little voice that's left, hey Tivia, talk about what my t-shirt says, Unsnatchable Treasure. And somebody who may not necessarily get the message will think this is it could be perceived as arrogance, but I don't think it is, or not for purposes, because if we are convinced or we are secure in who we are, and when we begin to embrace who we are, it's harder for us to believe and to become victims of other people's opinion, but that's another discussion by itself. I actually have it written down as one of the things that we are going to talk about in our conversations, affirmations. And so, our affirmation for tonight or for this week is Unsnatchable Treasure. And it deals pretty much with our own value systems, how we see ourselves, how we equate what we have, what we bring to the table, what we bring to our spaces, what we bring to wherever we find ourselves, whether it's on a job, at school, at play, whatever we do, when we understand that there's an assigned value that comes to wherever I show up, when I embrace that, when I'm comfortable in that, then it's easier for me to walk in confidence. It's easier for you to walk in confidence and not be moved by the opinions that we hear and that we get from other people who may not necessarily know us. And so when I'm thinking and talking about an unsnatchable treasure as it relates to me, as it relates to you as an individual, a treasure really speaks of a quantity of precious metals. It speaks of something that has value. It speaks of gems. It speaks of your diamond rings. Treasures are related to or they're thought of as things that are precious to us, things that we hold dearly to ourselves. And so we're equating what we have attached value to as secondary things or material things. And it's so easy for us to attach a value to something that's material, something that we can hold in our hand. And while we do that, and it's fine, oftentimes we don't embrace our own values, our own values that we have, or we don't value ourselves enough to the point that we demand a certain level of respect. We demand a certain level of response to who we are, to when we show up at whatever it is. And so treasure speaks of that value that we have, that value that's in it, that value that is developed through our experiences, through life's lessons that we learn. And if something is unsnatchable, first of all, snatch means to seize or to take hold of or to pluck up from where you are. It's like you take a tree and you root it out of the ground. It means to pluck up, it means to grab, it means to seize. Excuse me. And so when we think of the two, something that's an unsnatchable treasure, we're pretty much saying that I am not something that can be easily, or I'm not someone who can be easily seized. I'm not someone who can be easily taken hold of. I'm not someone who could be easily plucked up from where I'm at, from my foundation, from my belief systems. I'm not someone, or you're not someone who can be easily grabbed and be taken out of what you know or what you have embraced as being true to you. And so that's the concept of our conversation tonight. The mere fact that we begin to retrain our thinking, to retrain our minds to understand that, because sometimes the problem is in our inability to see value in ourselves. India Ari was talking in the song just that was playing earlier. I'm not the mistakes I've made. I'm not the problems that my family had. I'm not all of these things that we allow society to define us by. And so while that's not who I am, it's important that we also establish who we are. And so when we establish who we are, it's easier for us to be firm or be cemented in that, and not be moved when we hear something that we're not, or when we refer to as something that we're not. And so what about us makes us a treasure? What about as an individual, what makes me a treasure? And the same thing applies to each person who looks at this and who will see this. Our experiences, like I just mentioned, adds value to our existence. And whether they're good or bad, our experiences helps to add value to who we are. And so nobody can take your experiences away from us. Nobody can take your experiences away from you. And whether they're good or bad, there's something in each experience that we walk away with, and we should become better because of it. Because the next time a similar situation or similar circumstance happens, we can recall the last experience we had that was similar to this one, or the one that you're dealing with now, and the lessons you learned from it, the strengths that you're able to gain from that last experience now adds value, now adds a different or an increased understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. And so we are to be in the habit of not discounting or disqualifying our experiences from a part of our treasure. And so whether they're good or bad, they're a part of our treasure. And we must retrain ourselves to think that I know Marcus, one of my best buddies, just wrote a book, his first book, that talks about lemons. Good evening, Mr. Andrew Harris Jr. He just wrote about lemons. What do you do with the lemons in your life? And we hear that when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. And so we equate that, and we want to have that same thinking about our experiences. And they're not there to just make us feel less of ourselves, but our experiences, whether good or bad, they're adding value to our to who we are, to make us that, to our treasure. Another thing that helps to add value to us is our perception. Nobody can put something in your head that you don't allow them to. And so our perception really speaks of how we see things. Do we see the glass as half full or half empty? And it really is our internal locus of control. That's what measures or guides or perception. How do we see things? And once we have that positive outlook, I'm not saying that we are to live in a place where we deny the fact that we have issues, or we deny the fact that we've got a problem. But even after we assess what the problem is, we must understand that there's something about this that's still going to work in my favor. There's something about this that I can learn. There's something about it that can make me a better person. And if it's not just for me, then somebody around me, somebody in my sphere of influence, will be able to benefit or become better for it, even though I may be the one who may experience that. And so our perception of things helps to add value to us, helps to add value to that treasure that we are as a collective person, in our collective beings. Our belief systems, when we believe in something, once we hold firm to that belief, it begins to also add value to the treasure that we are. And so when we begin to combine with our experiences or perception of things or belief systems, all we are doing is building on our treasure. We're building on our value system. And when we continue to talk about it, and we continue to affirm and reaffirm ourselves in it, in who we are, and what our experiences and how they're working for us, the more cemented we are in those beliefs, the more cemented we are and committed to those affirmations that we give ourselves, the harder it is for us to become prey and to become vulnerable to things that we hear. Right, that's what Marcus says. Our experiences are never about us alone, and I absolutely agree. We carry our individual experiences, the destiny of others, and people will tell you, like anybody who ever coaches, or it doesn't even have to be in an official setting. Anybody who's ever coached anybody else, even in a sport, the coach has experience that they would have had in their time when they played. And so now that they are no longer playing in that game, their experiences that they would have learned as a player, they're able to transfer that information and that knowledge that they would have had into somebody else to make that individual that they're now coaching a better player. And so our experiences are working for not just for us, and to add value to us, but it also adds value to the people around us that will come into our sphere of influence. The fourth thing that adds value to us is our creativity or sense of creativity. I think I saw Roel, and he's a designer, and there are lots of other very creative people. Um, and so what we've got to embrace is the fact that, or what you are gifted at doing, I may not necessarily be gifted at doing, and so your creativity adds value to you. And so in that aspect, in adding value, or in adding and understanding and embracing the treasure that we are, we must embrace our own creativity. And if you're gifted at making flowers from paper, then it doesn't matter who doesn't think that that's a worthy art form or whatever it is, then that's not your concern. We've got to work what works for us, work what we have. I work in social services, and I had done a course in addiction and obsession, and I had to go to a meeting, and it was a strength resistance it was a strength resistance meeting. And at the end of the meeting, of course, I had to pretend that I was addicted to something so that I could observe. And so in it, at the end of it, there's this chant that they do, um, that says, work it, you're worth it. And so it embraces, it encourages the people to acknowledge what they have and work what they have, because they're worthy of the results that are going to come to them, and not just to them but to those around them. And so in our sense of creativity, instead of trying to do what everybody else is doing, if you're like Dino that just joined us and you're a good cricketer, then you don't need to be a basketball player. If you're gifted, you're creative, your creativity flows as a cricketer or as a soccer player or as a ball player. You find what works for you, or what you're good at, and you work it. That's how. Okay, Alima says, did you say hi, my name is Elaine? Actually, yes, I did. I had to, or was I silent? No, they did that at the beginning. At the end, you just did the little chant. um Work it, you're worth it, and something else. I can't remember all of it, but it really embraced the fact that, whatever it is that you, wherever you are, we've got to work what you have for you. And so, whatever it is that you're gifted with, like Robin the dancer that just joined us, then if that's where your creativity flows, then you work what you have, work what works for you. If you're a musician, then you be the best musician that you can be. If you're a writer, you be the best writer. Always have your pen ready. You always have your pen ready. Alina will talk about which session that was later. The other thing that adds to us or sense of value, and sometimes we take it for granted, is that genetically there's no other person that carries your print. There's no other person that has what you have in totality. Even if somebody can do what you do, they are not who you are. And we find ourselves in places where we allow the fact that somebody else we allow the fact that somebody else may be gifted in something that we're not gifted in. We measure ourselves against what that person is gifted at, and we don't ever give ourselves credit for what we have been given to serve the universe. And so we've got to always be conscious of the fact that you are uniquely you. I am uniquely me. Of all the billions of sperms that my daddy pushed out, I was the winning sperm. That's a treasure that we should celebrate. Hi, Vanessa. And so the mere fact that you're here, it tells that you're valuable. You bring value to your experiences. You bring value to if it's a room you step into, your classroom, your job, you bring value to your relationships. But if you don't understand and embrace your value, then nobody's going to be able to respect, or it's going to be harder for somebody else to be able to respect your value or to see your value when you don't even acknowledge and see your own value. Good night, good night, good night, Norman Agard, the man, the boss. I'll probably do a live because he's working on an amazing project, and we'll talk about that later, another time. And so we have to embrace our experiences, whether we see them as positive or negative, because they add value to our treasure. We have to embrace and to acknowledge our perception of things, whether they seem to be working for our good or not. Our perception of things will add value or it will take away from us. And so when we begin to retrain our minds, then we continue to add value even with how we perceive things or beliefs. Like pain, for example, those women who are here who may see this, pain is not a good thing, or perception of pain in childbirth is not a good thing, because if you nobody really likes pain. I'm yet to find somebody who enjoys pain. There are people that do, but I've not met anybody who enjoys pain. And so if somebody's pregnant and they're about to give birth, and the baby begins to crown and they're having contractions, the pain that contraction and that crowning brings, I'm talking like I have kids or I've ever been in an experience where I saw somebody give birth, but I know, I've heard, I've read. But that pain that's brought about by that experience could cause you to change your mind. But if you understand that that pain is a part of the process of you giving birth to that child that you'll love for eternity, then you'll embrace that pain because of how you perceive it. The third thing we talk about is our belief. Our belief systems will add value to the treasure that we are, or creativity, or genetics, who we are. When we understand that you're the winning sperm, when you understand that your print, there's not another person like you. There might be somebody that can draw better than you, that can dance better than you, that can sing better than you, that can whatever it is that they do better than you. But when we understand that our place in the universe is not to be the second class to what somebody else is trying to do, or what somebody is trying to make you to become. That's right, Sherwin. Identity is key. And I think he said something before. Yes, absolutely. You're right. You're dope and you bring value. The sixth thing, and which will be the last thing, because I'm trying to keep it at a timestamp. The sixth and final thing is our willingness to be ourselves. So when we embrace our experiences, when we embrace all that we are, all that we just talked about, we've got to be willing to be who we are. Be willing to be who we were created to be. Be willing to be the salt to preserve our families, to preserve the experiences of our children, to preserve the legacy that we're building for those that will come after us. To be an artist, to be a painter, to be a dancer, to be a musician, to be whatever it is that we find ourselves, to be our best selves. That's right. Be authentically you. Don't be. That's right, Robin. Belief is key. Like Marcus said. I know why his name is Damien. Marcus said authenticity is key. I am worthy. That's what we need to do. We need to see ourselves as being worthy. You're worthy of living in the best house. You're worthy of being loved. You're worthy of forgiveness. You're worthy of the best experiences. You're worthy of eating at the best places. You're worthy of traveling and seeing the world. You're worthy of all these things. But because we don't oftentimes see ourselves as being worthy, because we don't often see ourselves as being valuable, then we allow people to it's easier for people to take that away from us. And so for tonight's affirmation, that's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I want to touch base. That's what I wanted to encourage somebody. Encourage me, because I need to remind myself. I talked about this for a long time ago, and I thought that it's necessary for me to have gone back there to reaffirm us. And so our affirmation tonight and for this week is to say that I am an unsnatchable treasure. Tell yourself that, and stop waiting for somebody else to tell you. Stop waiting for other people to approve of you. Understand your worth. Embrace your worth. Know that your experiences are adding value to you. They're adding value to your treasure. Your perception of things will add value to who you are and your treasure. Your belief systems are adding value to you. Your sense of creativity or your giftings are adding value to you, who you are as a person. You're genetically, biologically, you are worthy. You are uniquely you, and there's nobody else that can do that. And that's right. Tell yourself, stop waiting for people to tell you that you're worthy. Stop waiting for people to tell you you're beautiful. Yes, Alima, she's gonna take it extra. She says she's cute. Of course you are, even if nobody else tells you that. And so we've got to cultivate the mindset and the practice of continually affirming ourselves, so that even if nobody else says it to us, you have already said it about yourself. And that's another affirmation I'm going to talk about. I can't remember which week, but I think I've got a calendar of like the next 5 weeks of what we're going to talk about. Um, Speaking first over yourself. And so that's right. Um, Remind yourself on a daily basis you are worthy, you are loved, you are beautiful, you are creative, your experiences are adding value to you, uh, your creativity helps to add value to you, and you are an unsnatchable treasure. So that's it, and good night. That's right, Dino. Greetings to Montserrat and Dino. Dino, did I teach Dino in? Yeah, no, never mind. Unstoppable. That's right. All the positive things that you can think of, all the things that you want to work for you, all the things that you want to see happen in your life, speak it, release it into the atmosphere, release it into the universe, and allow that to work for you. Because if you don't speak it, you're allowing somebody else to speak it for you. And what they speak may not necessarily what you want to manifest in your life. So you have the advantage of speaking and speaking first. So that's it for tonight. And good night. I will see you next week. Head over to the Affirmations with Elaine page, because at some point I'm going to stop broadcasting from this page, from my personal page, and we're just going to do it through Affirmations with Elaine. So go over to, just type in Affirmations with Elaine, it will pop up. Like, follow that, invite your friends there. I'm unstoppable. And not just do it for you. Find somebody in your contact list. Find somebody you can text, one of your friends that you may not have spoken to in a while, and send them an affirmation. Tell them that they are an unsnatchable treasure. Tell them they're valuable. Tell them they're loved, because somebody may not have heard that in the longest while. Thank you, Glenn. And yeah, do it for somebody, and allow that same energy that you release to somebody to work for you. So you are an unsnatchable treasure, and I just wanted to remind you of that tonight. Good night from me to you. Bye bye.